Hello and welcome to Digital Twin. Today we will talk about two different case studies from automotive industry and food industry where traceability system was implemented. Stay tuned. Digital Twin podcast is a place where technology and business is going hand in hand.
If you are thinking about digitalizing your company, you found the right place.
Podcast is hosted by Adrian Stelmach, consultant who implements IT solutions for manufacturing companies.
And Paul Pachowicz, industrial digitalization expert, who helps global companies to optimize production processes. Hey Adrian, the question is why two? And I can kind of imagine why two different case studies. Because in the previous episode, you mentioned that there are two different reasons for companies to implement. One of them is internal, one of them is external. So the two case studies that we'll be talking about today, they are related to the fact that one of the companies that we'll be talking about decided to do it for their own purposes, for the purposes of just having a better understanding of whatever is happening within their factory. The second was kind of forced on them, right? Just because the company that they collaborate with have this process of monitoring, or track and tracing all the elements that they use for the final production. So anything that we need to mention before we jump into this topic? Should we kind of elaborate on whatever happened in the previous episode?
Yeah, I think a short summary, because this is the fourth and last one from series about traceability in the podcast. In general, we talked about it in the last episodes, and I think now it's like the final one where we will show how this knowledge is implemented in real life. So in general, we will talk about traceability, but regarding to manufacturing companies and regarding to how we track and trace the data from the beginning until the end of the process of production in automotive and food and beverage.
Sure. So which one should we go? Which one should we start with?
I want to talk first about two important, I would say, components of traceability systems. In general, I would say any kind of traceability system have two groups of components, I would say. First one is physical ones, and it's, for example, the way you are putting this QR code or barcode on the part, or there's kind of servers, hardware necessary needed to implement the entire system. And the second one is related with data management. So from data sources like PLCs, like sensors, till the different servers, reports and final users' computers. And it is important because in every sector or in every branch, those two things could be different, right? For example, we talked about, you asked me a question about, for example, a few episodes ago about milk, right? How you can put up QR code if there's a liquid, right?
Right.
And yeah, exactly. It's impossible to just, print a QR code in the liquid, but what you can do, you can track the entire amount, you can say, of a party of this liquid, right? And you can say if it's mixed together, it means that all of this, 100 gallons and so on, it's exactly the same.
Okay, so two different elements of every single traceability implementation. Yeah. Actually, I'm gonna share a little bit about a case study of the Patagonia's traceability project, because I really appreciate of what they're doing and the reason behind them implementing a traceability system. But let's start with your case study. The first one.
Okay, so first one will be automotive industry. So I would say most complex traceability you can imagine, because every car is, connected to thousands of different parts and from hundreds of different manufacturers. So in the end, this car company, which we can know from their logos, from the commercials, they are responsible for all of those parts. And I had a customer in the past who came to me and said, okay, this big car manufacturer, I will not say the brand, but it's a premium. It's a big premium brand of a car. He said, we want to make sure that the quality of your production as a tier 1 manufacturer is 100% quality and 100% in efficiency, because we need, in every 30 seconds, we need a new part from you. Right? We need thousands. We cannot afford to make any downtimes in your plant. And if you can afford that, if you can guarantee that you will do it. And he came to me and he asked, okay, is it even possible, or how to do it, or what kind of traceability system do I need? So as you see, the motivation for this system implementation was external, because my customer didn't exactly need from inside implement the traceability to cut some costs and so on, but he needed it to have a new investigation going on, right? So he built the entire plant for this customer, for this car company, and I was helping him to first do this 15 steps of documentation for traceability, and then we did the implementation for the entire IT system.
14 steps of documentation, and the 15th step is actually implementation.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. So anything else to say, the benefits of that? Because I think that would be like, what was the business goal? The business goal was to be able to work with the bigger brands, because it's usually the bigger brands that are trying to make sure that the track and trace is under their control, the whole process. So the goal was to be able to work with that bigger brand, right?
Yeah.
And that of course was met, right?
Yeah. Yes, that goal was met, but the customer didn't have an experience with traceability before, because other customers in the past didn't need that for them. I mean, they needed that, but not that much of a complex. So so this time they wanted an automated traceability system, which will gather the entire data from every step of the process, and no matter what was done on this process. And it was a metal parts manufacturer for the inside of the car. And the interesting thing, it was that in the first step they calculated the entire ROI for the entire investment. So building the plant was the investment. So building the plant, setting up the machines, creating the entire infrastructure, connecting it to the already going process of the rest of the business. And after that, they know how much they can sell this product to the customer. And after they see, okay, that makes sense, but we have to sell it for this amount of money, and some of portion of this money is actually, the money which they need for investment for traceability. They came, they sign a contract, and they have to set it up the entire process. And after I think it took like 1.5 years. The interesting thing, it was that they met a lot of different goals which they didn't imagine in the beginning, because suddenly, beside all of the things that the customer wanted from them, they could also make the entire communication internal of the company much faster. Also, they don't need it that much of people to I would say setting up the documentation process, because documentation was already automated. They made the goal for the efficiency, but it doesn't mean that because of the traceability they could run the entire factory like 100% efficiency. But what they can do, if there's any downtime or there's any problem, they could, for example, communicate with other facilities to help them, or they can just take care of some of the production. So there's a lot of things during this process and after they actually run the entire plant, which show them that this system is something which they should also consider for the entire plants, even though the customer from the other plants doesn't exactly need that.
Yeah, that should become a standard for it, and it will probably become a standard for most manufacturing plants out there. Okay, so let's talk about this, because that was what you just described was like an external factor that decided of going through the whole process, and at the end of the day, the company realized that it's good that there was this external force, because it's actually good for them. But what about like the other approach? Whenever the company decides that they have to do something because they want to stand up for something, they want to represent something, they want to be a part of something, or they just want to manage their production better. So I have this example of Patagonia, which I think is pretty popular all over the world. And we all know what they do. They do clothing, but they have a very special mindset and company's culture. And just because they have super strong relationship with people buying their stuff, they decided to create something that's called TDS, which is Traceable Down Standard. Down is the part of I don't want to explain it what's down, but it's animal fluffy layer, from ducks and geese. So they wanted to make sure that their customers, the people buying their clothing, know that the down was sourced ethically, right? And then they went through this whole process of working with like external companies that were doing audits, and they were making sure that that the down was that no animals were hurt, during the process of collecting that. And as a result, they set up a new standard for the whole industry. So and that's actually strengthened their brand by a lot. Just because nobody else was doing that, they could use that for the communication with their customers. So yeah, it was probably a big investment, because it was like super custom work, based on audits. I don't think I don't know how easy it is to actually define how this down was extracted. Like how I don't know how difficult this is to be able to say that the animals were hurt during the process or they weren't. So that was probably super difficult. But at the end of the day, they basically contributed to this larger sustainability mission that they are a part of. But thanks to that project, they also became a leader of that sustainability process. So yeah, but that's just another example of companies that on their own decided to implement traceability for to maximize the impact that they have on this sustainability mission.
Mm-hmm.
What about your example? There will be like a similar example because that's caused by the internal force
Yeah.
of the company.
Yeah. Also, I want to add something from my previous example, because I talked about this automotive company. Also, what they actually have from this traceability project, they created standards, which they didn't have in the past. So we mentioned that in episodes before, that implementation of IT system is a good way to just start standards in some areas if you don't have it. Like, for example, what kind of PLCs, one manufacturer, we want to buy the machines, and what kind of servers, and so on. Okay, but my second case study, it will be from, as we said, from food and beverages. And it was also a pretty large company. They had traceability, but it was on a manual documentation. And their customer, they were okay with that. So after they were selling and delivering the product to the final customer, they just give him the entire paper documentation with the process, where you had charts from the process and so on. But the main motivation was increasing the costs of the production. They figured out that in the long term, the current situation of increasing the costs from their branch, like electricity, gas, workforce, raw materials, and so on, after a few years, they could have problems if they don't start controlling it right now. So they see that their costs are growing too much, and probably they are growing more than their opponents, I would say, or right. So they ask, okay, what kind of system could help with that? So they didn't say, okay, we want traceability. They just describe this problem and some other things which are related with that. And after our discussion, we decided, I helped them. I did this entire process, my 15-step process. And we decided, okay, the traceability MES system and traceability module is something which will solve most of your problems for now, because we will gather the information related with specific costs of production. We could compare those costs between different products. And after that, we will know exactly. We will try to find those differences are made of. And in the end of the day, they actually implemented the system. They connected it to our ERP, and after a while, they force also their manufacturers, which are selling their raw materials, also to have it. Because I will tell you only one example. Their manufacturer who sold them the raw materials came to the company, give him the raw material, the documentation. But they didn't have time to check the exact documentation, so they have to take this raw material and send it to one of the tanks from the process and check the quality during this time. And if the quality was not met as they wanted, it means that they have to reverse the entire process, which is expensive, as you can imagine, right?
Right.
And after they say, okay, you have to also give us the entire traceability documentation before we take this raw material, it means that, for example, they cut those kind of costs in the meantime.
Yep. Yeah. So what do you see as the future of traceability? Any trends for 2023 4 and up?
Yeah, I think the most important technologies which are being used to traceability right now, there is IoT.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's IoT is like in general it's important for like manufacturing and industry 4.0. Like why is this even special for traceability?
Yeah, because I think sometimes we mislead what IIoT, why IIoT could be important for manufacturing. Because, for example, if you have like production plant, which all of the things are going on inside of it, maybe IIoT, which is it's not that important for you, or IIoT sensors, I mean. But imagine a situation when you have a 1,000 acre field, right? And you want to gather data from different places from this field. So building the entire infrastructure, which is not wireless, but there is wires, and also having a lot of different sensors which are connecting, which are giving you the same data, is very expensive. If you take the IoT devices, which are connecting to each other, communicating to each other, and one sensor is gathering more data than a regular one, I would say, it cuts you costs extremely, right? So in this kind of fields, IoT makes more sense, I would say.
Okay. What about my favorite topic, which is artificial intelligence?
Yes, of course, artificial intelligence will be very important also for traceability. Not exactly, to gather data, but to make the decisions faster, right? And because if you think what artificial intelligence is, really, it is like a way to, I would say, connect the dots to each other faster, right?
Yes, it is about connecting dots, but also if the algorithms are, trained well enough based on the data that they've been collecting for a very long time, they can actually make predictions for the future, right?
Yeah. AI is all about finding correlations, right? So if you find the correlations from the past, which, for example, causes downtimes or causes worse quality and so on, it means that you can make decisions faster. You can stop the process and so on. Of course, you don't need artificial intelligence for that, but you need artificial intelligence for that if there's too many informations or the process is very, very, very complex. Like you have thousands of different parameters and thousands of different relations between those parameters, which are finally causing a bad quality of your final product, right? So there is a place for artificial intelligence, especially.
Yep. I think I'd like to mention another one of those trends, and that would be that the customers demand transparency more and more. Right, they want to like whatever Patagonia did with their traceability system. That kind of proved that it's possible, and maybe even it should be done, because then the customers can make more rational decisions. Buying the stuff that they feel okay with. Any thoughts of this increasing demand for transparency on the customer side?
Yeah. Imagine a situation when you can scan your barcode of whatever product you have, like a milk, for example, and you see the entire process, how it does look like. It's also a way to show people, because we also talked about it, but it's also a way to show people that actually every product is always unique. If you buy like milk or whatever you think you're buying, it looks like 100,000 different products on the same brand, but it's unique because it was produced in a specific time with a specific raw material, with a specific part of this material. So it's always unique, and traceability and giving this this way to a final customer to see this data from traceability, it also a way to show the uniqueness of this process.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it's a big advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the last thing that I believe will influence the future of traceability is sustainability. I think that's important because there's more and more focus, put on the sustainability, and traceability helps, to ensure the sustainability, and it just helps the economy to manage the life cycle of resources maybe a little better, and then it helps to do that, during the whole production process and the whole supply chain, basically. Any thoughts of that? Of course, it helps to reduce the waste, because if you're like making sure that you're checking the quality of all the products, that means that you're not, shipping terrible products to people. They are more happy. You don't use resources to actually send stuff that is already not good for use and all that. Anything to add there? Anything that's not really obvious?
I think because if you think about carbon footprint, you can take a lot of information to actually document the carbon footprint from traceability. And if you imagine that you have one traceability system during the entire creation of value chain, so you have like different manufacturers, but they are connecting this traceability data to each other, it means that you have the entire documentation and footprint in no time. And it's like, because you have traceability, you also have that.
Takeaways?
Sure.
Okay, so the trends point to a future that they describe, where traceability systems are increasingly digital, and they help with transparency. And there's one thing that we didn't mention, which is blockchain technology. I think that's a big part of traceability systems. To ensure that we are tracking everything, and it's super difficult, to mess with the results of that if the blockchain technology is applied. But maybe instead of your takeaway, you could summarize with this blockchain technology, because I feel that we should not have missed that for this episode.
Yeah, sure. I mean, for sure, we will talk about blockchain in the future, because it's very important. It will be very important also for manufacturing. In general, if you think about data and cybersecurity, there is a possibility, of course, that someone from outside of the company will do something with this data, right? And will
I mean, like corrupt the data?
For example, corrupt this information, right? Because it's covered in a standard SQL basis and so on, right? But if you forget about those SQL databases where you can actually corrupt the data if you only have access to it, and if you put blockchain inside of it, it means that you cannot corrupt this information if once it is already saved there. Of course, there's benefits of this process and some challenges as well. And I think it's too early phase to say that the blockchain is a standard, or it's coming to be a standard in a way to gather information from manufacturing processes related to traceability. But I think in the future, after we sustain a blockchain in other branches, like for example finance, the next will be manufacturing, and it's not the thing if it will be. It's only when it will be, because
So just to sum it up, the blockchain technology is used to ensure the integrity and traceability of the data, and to prevent the fraud, the possible fraud. Yeah, right. I mean, just to sum it up, because we just mixed up blockchain with traceability, and that might be a lot. But if you're looking at traceability, and if you want to make sure that nobody's gonna try to corrupt the data, then applying blockchain technology should help with increasing the security of that data, basically.
You can say that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you consider what kind of other technologies are helpful for traceability, you can mention IoT for sure, because we already talked about it. You can say about artificial intelligence, also talking about it, blockchain as well, and cloud computing as well, because cloud makes the entire infrastructure less expensive and more. You can make it more on demand. Not you have to on the beginning of the the implementation process, you have to figure it out how many computing power you will need, right? It was done like 10 or 15 years ago.
Beautiful. I think that's it for today.
Yeah, for sure.
It was good. It was a good brainstorming session on what the traceability will look like, and then the main technologies that are influencing traceability every single day. Exactly. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, please leave a comment, subscribe our channel, and see you next week. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.